morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome once again to another Good Morning TNT here on CTV and ctvtt.com. We are Rip Chancing here with you, taking you right up till 8 o'clock as usual, Monday to Friday. And it is Thursday today, one more day before Friday and before the weekend. Good things to look forward to. Today we're going to be focusing on what's happening in the St. Madeline School and TTUTA, what's been taking place, and the fallout with TTUTA and the St. Madeline School, and get an update on what's happening and TTUTA's stance basically on what, well, the Ministry of Education is intending to do with teachers of that school. So we'll find out what that situation is and what the situation is with respect to that. Also, there's a UE postgraduate conference that's coming up, and going to learn more about that this morning. World Meteorological Day. Yes, it is. So want to find out more? We will find out more. March 23rd, as a matter of fact. So we'll find out some more about World Met Day, World Meteorological Day, right here on GMTT. We're also going to be, of course, visiting Tobago, as we do every day here on GMTT, and so looking forward to that. Also, more on Carry-led and rolling out the local economic development. We've heard instances in Belize and in Jamaica and how it's worked for them. We're going to find out how it is working for Trinidad and Tobago this morning, and so looking forward to that one. Week of Awareness on Domestic Violence. That's also happening, and it's coming out from the Hugh Wooding Law School. So we'll find out. And, of course, remember the First Citizen Sports Personality. That's taking place tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, and CTV will be bringing it to you live. Well, we've got some more athletes who are up for that award, so you have to join us for that and find out some more about those athletes. Sports Personality of the Year. So that, so much more, and it's going to be a great Thursday. I can promise you that. As we start things off this morning, talking about what's happening at the St. Madeline School. Recently, you would have heard some incidences of teachers protesting and then students hurling things at them, and it just sort of escalated into something that I don't know, maybe it should not have gotten to this point, but we're going to find out exactly what this point is and what's being done. And to talk to us a little bit more about it is Lynsley Doodhai this morning, and he is in fact the president of TTUTA, the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. So good morning to you.
Good morning, Ria, and good morning to your many viewers. And thank you for having TTUTA on your program this morning.
It's a pleasure to have TTUTA this morning on the show. For those people who may not know what's been happening in the St. Madeline School, what has been happening?
Well, the issue first arose approximately 5 years ago when a number of teachers brought to TTUTA's attention issues of governance, leadership, and management of the school. TTUTA has been attempting over the past 5 years or so to have the Ministry of Education properly investigate the concerns of our members. We have had meetings after meetings with the Ministry of Education. We have had joint interventions at the school with school supervision, and we even had a picket as far back as February of 2015 to highlight the issues at the school. The Ministry of Education has continued to either refuse to properly investigate the concerns that were raised, or they have been very lethargic in addressing the concerns of the teachers. The General Council of TTUTA last month would have mandated that a picket action be held at the school. This picket action took place on Monday, the 5th of March, and during the picket, while the General Council and some teachers from the St. Madeline Secondary School were engaged in this picket action, we were confronted by chanting students bearing placards and beating drums. The picket took place on the pavement outside of the school's compound, but the students congregated inside of the front gate of the school near to the guard booth. Throughout the confrontation with the students, the teachers maintained their calm, they acted in a dignified manner, and in no way did they respond to the chantings of the students. The students were armed with placards, and they were also in possession of drums that they were beaten. Now, some of these very students, I have been told by teachers, do not even have pens when they come to school to write with. So it begs the question, where did the students get markers and Bristol board to
and drums
to use in this protest action. And from all intents and purposes, it seems that these students were coerced into acting in the manner that they did.
May I ask what the issue is exactly? Because you said it's been happening. It's 5 years now, you said, that, the Ministry, you've asked the Ministry of Education to look into this. What exactly is the problem in the school?
Well, let me say that TTUTA has received, I believe, 3 pre-action protocol letters. So I will have to be careful in terms of what I say. But what I can tell you is that teachers have complained of being intimidated, abused, and victimized by a school official.
Okay, all right, very well.
Yeah.
So that has been happening for like 5 years now.
Just approximately 5 years.
Happening for about 5 years now. So you've asked the Ministry of Education to look into this.
Yeah.
And to date, nothing really has been done.
Yes, and I want to point out, if I may, that the blame has to go squarely on senior officials of the Ministry of Education. And when I say senior officials, I refer to the Chief Education Officer and the Director of School Supervision. These 2 public servants have largely contributed to the situation reaching to this boiling point, to this volatile state that we are now in.
And this volatile state that we are now in is what? Because I understand the Ministry of Education is now taking some action against the teachers who you say were leading a peaceful protest outside the school compound and during the lunch hour as well. So did they go back to work after the lunch hour protest, or?
Well, in terms of the contemplated charges by the Ministry of Education against the teachers, I want to point out that the ministry will be very foolhardy to go down that road, because there are a number of reasons why the teachers committed no wrong, and I want to point out that.
Please do.
Under our Constitution, teachers, workers have the freedom of expression and the right to engage in lawful protests. Under the Industrial Relations Act, workers are given the right to picket. Thirdly, the picket took place during the lunch break of the St. Madeline Secondary School. And fourthly, as I mentioned earlier, even when confronted by chanting students bearing placards and beating drums, the teachers maintained their composure. They acted in an orderly, peaceful, and dignified manner. So there's no basis for any disciplinary charges against the teachers. The Minister of Education is reported in one of the daily newspapers as saying that the teachers were setting a bad example. Now, to hear that from the Minister of Education was extremely disappointing to TTUTA. As a former president of TTUTA, he led many pickets. He participated in many pickets. And it's downright hypocritical or disingenuous of the minister to come now and say that the teachers were setting a bad example. The question must be asked, was Mr. Garcia, when he was the president of TTUTA, setting a bad example when he led and participated in many pickets throughout the length and breadth of the country?
Now, didn't you say too that there was some picket action that was taken previously as well by the teachers?
Yes, there was a previous.
Were there any consequences to that?
No, there were no consequences to that.
So what's the difference? Apart from, well, apparently this got a little bit confrontational. So what was the difference with the teachers picketing then to the teachers picketing now?
That's a very good question. This particular picket action would have been brought to the attention of the national community because of the ugly incident that played out on that particular day. But we did engage in a peaceful protest in February of 2015, and there were no consequences to that picket action by any of the picketers.
Well, why do you think now there was no confrontation then? It was the same issue that the teachers were fighting for. What do you think may have escalated it to come to the point where the students now are reacting towards it in such a, well, we're alleging right now a way that they're reacting to it differently now? Well,
students have been incited to act against teachers for some time now. And what I am saying can be borne out by an assembly where there's an audio recording of the students being addressed and certain disparaging remarks were made by teachers. When that assembly was held on that particular day, there was a breakdown of discipline after the assembly because the students were openly mocking teachers, and teachers were having grave difficulties in maintaining discipline in the school. So that happened probably two to 3 weeks before the picket action. So the stage was set for what took place on Monday, March 5th, 2017.
Was there an investigation done into the incident that took place? The last incident with the confrontation, the most recent incident with the students hurling on March 5th?
I cannot answer that with a certainty, because the Ministry of Education has been telling TTUTA for some time now investigations have been taking place, and we are not sure that this is really happening. And I can give you a very clear example. On Ash Wednesday the 1st of March, TTUTA met the Chief Education Officer at the RCLRC in Couva. And the Chief Education Officer told TTUTA that the very next day, Thursday, the 2nd of March, he was going to the St. Madeline Secondary School to commence an investigation into the issues that TTUTA would have brought to the ministry's attention. Lo and behold, the Chief Education Officer went to the school on Thursday, the 2nd of March, and he announced his visit by saying he did not come here to conduct any investigation, but as a follow-up visit to a presentation the school would have made on a curriculum matter. So the Ministry of Education apparently is taking TTUTA for fools, right? They are playing us, and when they speak to us in meetings, we really have to question the veracity of what they are telling us.
Now, you say, why I ask whether there was an investigation done is because now disciplinary action is coming against the teachers. And that's why I would like to know, find out, whether an investigation was done so that as a result of those investigations, the reports of those investigations, that disciplinary action will be taken against the teachers, which is why I asked that question.
Well, apparently one may have done, but if that investigation was done, it obviously is flawed. And, it's curious when you think about it. Picket action on Monday the 5th of March. Monday the 12th of March, the minister is announcing disciplinary action against teachers. But we have an issue that is almost 5 years old, and we have heard nothing about disciplinary action against a certain school official when there is compelling evidence for the Ministry of Education to act.
Now, once again, I just want everyone to know exactly what can teachers do or cannot do with respect to protest action, so that the public knows.
As I mentioned earlier, under the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, teachers have a right to the freedom of expression and the right to engage in lawful protests. The Industrial Relations Act also gives the authority to engage in picket action. So when Minister Garcia is saying that the teachers were not setting a bad example in terms of their actions, right? What he is in effect saying is that teachers do not have the right to picket. Workers do not have the right to picket. And the issue now is an issue bigger than St. Madeline Secondary School. It involves an issue of every worker in Trinidad and Tobago and whether they have the right to picket or not. And of course, our constitutional right obviously is being threatened by the statements of the minister when he says that, in effect, that teachers should not be engaged in picket action.
Now, as I understand it, one thing that teachers cannot do is basically speak to media. That is something that they're not allowed to do, but picket's different from that.
Teachers are not allowed to speak to the media on policy matters involving the Ministry of Education.
Right. Yeah, so it's either the representative from TTUTA, the principal, or whoever else can actually speak to, but they are not allowed.
Yeah.
And that's the real only thing that's disallowed, basically.
Yeah.
That I suppose action, if you're looking to take disciplinary action against a teacher, that if they do that, then you should not have done that.
Yeah.
What does TTUTA intend to do now, though?
Our General Council met in an emergency session on Monday night, and the General Council mandated that TTUTA up the ante, that we intensify our efforts to get the Ministry of Education to act. As I mentioned earlier, this is now an issue bigger than St. Madeline Secondary School. It's an issue of workers' rights, and we have enjoined the trade union movement of Trinidad and Tobago in this struggle. So last night, TTUTA would have been in a company with the Joint Trade Union Movement, National Trade Union Center and the Federation of Independent Trade Unions. And they have all expressed solidarity with TUTA on the issue, and they have also expressed their support. So whatever action that is to take place thereafter in terms of St. Madeline, we will have the support of and solidarity of the trade union movement of Trinidad and Tobago.
Have the teachers gone back to school? Have they gone back to work?
The teachers have returned to work. However, they are operating in a very toxic environment. Their mental health is being threatened on a daily basis just by being in school. In fact, one teacher at the school, that's the most senior teacher after the principal and the vice principal, has been unable to attend school for a couple of weeks now due to issues that would have impacted negatively on her health.
Okay. Can you speak to the relationship now as well with the teachers and the students, what it's like?
Teachers still have a difficult time in terms of maintaining law and order at the school. When Minister Garcia said that the school has returned to a state of normalcy, that is not so. That is certainly not so, because our teachers are telling us that students are being openly disrespectful to them, and they have a difficult time in terms of maintaining order and discipline at the school.
Okay, so when can we see some action from TUTA? When you're speaking with the unions, when can we see something being done again by TUTA to settle this matter?
Well, honestly, TUTA would hope that good sense would prevail and we will not have to engage in any further action. However, in the coming weeks, the mandate from the General Council will be there for all to see. I would not want, at this point in time, to disclose what are the plans in terms of the General Council of TUTA.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Doodhai, Lynsley Doodhai, for coming and speaking with us and letting us know what the situation is, clarifying things a lot and giving us a lot more information on what's happening at the St. Madeline School and the teachers as well. And I do wish them the best of luck and hope that the situation gets rectified. So thank you for being here this morning. This is Good Morning.